Okay, after many months, finally, we are at chapter 8, Mastering the Mind. Introduction. Having presented a broad overview of the world transcending path in the previous chapter, in this chapter and the next, I intend to focus more specifically on two aspects of this path, as described in the Nikayas: meditation and wisdom. As we have seen, the gradual training is divided into three sections of moral discipline, concentration, and wisdom. See page 225 and 226. Moral discipline begins with the observance of precepts, which anchor one's actions in principles of conscientious behavior and moral restraint. The undertaking of precepts for the Nikayas, particularly the full code of monastic precepts, is called the training in the higher moral discipline, Adisilasika. Moral discipline, consistently observed, infuse the mind with the purifying force of moral virtue, generating joy and deeper confidence in the Dhamma. Okay, Sister Sakya, would you like to continue?
Established upon moral discipline, the disciple takes up the practice of meditation, intended to stabilize the mind and clear away the obstacles to the unfolding of wisdom. Because meditation elevates the mind beyond its normal level, this phase of practice is called the training in the higher mind, Adicittasika, because it brings inner stillness and quietude. It is also called the development of serenity, Samatha Bhavana. Successful practice results in deep concentration or mental unification, Samadhi, also known as internal serenity of mind. Ajatam Cheto Samatha. The most eminent types of concentration recognized in the Nikayas are the four jhanas, which constitute right concentration, Sammasamadhi, of the Noble Eightfold Path. Beyond the jhanas lie the four formless attainments, Arupa Samapati, which carry the process of mental unification to still subtler levels. Thank you.
Thanks, Sister Sakya. Sister Choi Kwan, would you like to continue?
The third stage of practice is the training in the higher wisdom, Adipanyasika, designed to awaken direct insight into the true nature of things as disclosed by the Buddha's teaching. This will be dealt with in detail in the following chapter. The first selection below, text 8, section 1, is a miscellany of short epigrams that stress the need for mental cultivation. The saying occurs in pairs. In each pair, the first number signals the dangers of the uncultivated mind. The second extols the benefits of the cultivated mind. The uncultivated mind is easy prey to the defilements, greed, hatred, and delusion, and their offshoots. The defilements generate unwholesome karma, which brings painful results both in this life and in future lives. Since the defilements are the cause of our suffering and bondage, the path to liberation necessarily involves a meticulous process of mental training intended to subdue them and ultimately uproot them from their nesting place in the deep recesses of the mind. From development of the mind arise happiness, freedom, and peace. Thank you.
Thanks, Sister Saikwe and Sister Chekwan. This is what we talked about in the beginning. The uncultivated mind. That's why it's difficult to wake up. There's a greed to continue sleeping. Okay, because I have less years I read. Okay, Sister Shomei, would you like to read?
Development of the mind for the Nikayas means the development of serenity, samatha, and insight, vipassana. Text 8, chapter 8 and para 2:1 says that when serenity is developed, it leads to concentration and the liberation of the mind from such emotional defilements as lust and ill will. When insight is developed, it leads to the higher wisdom of insight into the true nature of phenomena and permanently liberates the mind from ignorance. Thus, the two things most needed to master the mind are serenity and insight.
Thanks, Sister Shomei. So, two types, the development of serenity and insight. Samatha and vipassana. Okay, for serenity.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Can I just check? Serenity is not usually the word used for samatha, right?
Then what is the usual word?
Was there another English word that is more commonly used than serenity? Sorry,
concentration. Just now we read, right? I think
yeah.
previous one says concentration.
Okay, here it's also described when serenity is developed, it leads to concentration. But when insight is developed, leads to a higher wisdom of insight, which leads to liberation. So these two things are both important. I'll continue reading. Since concentration is the basis for wisdom, the Nikayas usually treat the development of serenity as the precursor to the development of insight. However, because the aptitudes of meditators differ, several suttas allow for alternative approaches to this sequence. Text chapter 8, section 2.2 speaks of 4 approaches to mental cultivation. The first approach, the classical one, is to develop serenity first and insight afterward. By serenity is meant the jhanas, or according to the Pali commentaries, a state bordering on the jhanas called access or threshold concentration, upachara samadhi. Okay, Sister Saiken, would you like to read?
Number 2, a second approach is to develop insight first and serenity afterward. Since there can be no real insight without concentration, such meditators, presumably people with sharp intellectual faculties, must initially use concentration as the basis for acquiring insight into the true characteristics of phenomena. However, it seems that such concentration, though sufficient for insight, is not strong enough to allow for a breakthrough to the supramundane path. These meditators must therefore return to the task of unifying the mind before resuming the work of insight. Such insight, based on concentration, culminates in the supramundane path.
Thanks, Sister Saika. Okay, the second one is insight first and serenity afterwards. Okay, Sister Chengkwan, would you like to continue?
3. A third approach is to develop serenity and insight in tandem. Meditators who take this approach first attain a particular level of concentration, such as a jhana or formless attainment, and then enjoy it as a basis for insight. Having developed insight, they then return to concentration, attain a different jhana or formless attainment, and use that as a basis for insight. Thus, they proceed until they reach the supramundane path. Thank you.
Thanks, Sister Chengkwan. Okay, the last one, Sister Shomi, would you like to read?
The description of the fourth approach is somewhat obscure. The sutta says that a monk's mind is seized by agitation about the teachings, and then sometime later, he gains concentration and attains the supramundane path. This statement suggests a person initially driven by such intense desire to understand the Dharma that he or she cannot focus clearly upon any meditation object. Later, with the aid of certain supporting conditions, this person manages to subdue the mind, gain concentration, and attain the supramundane path.
Okay. Thanks, Sister Shomi. Okay. So, four approach, let's recap. The first, the very classic approach. Serenity first, you highlight. Serenity first, and then insight afterwards. The order. Second, the other way around. Insight first and serenity afterwards. However, here must be noted that such concentration is not strong enough for a breakthrough to the supramundane path. That's why we have to go back. And it's also highlighted here. There can be no real insight without concentration. Yeah, so that's why these meditators has to go back to work on the serenity before resuming on the work of insight. Okay. The third approach, serenity and insight in tandem. How does this look like? So let's say one attain first jhana and then they work on the insight, and then attain the second jhana and then work on the insight. Yeah. So in tandem. And the last one, which Sister Shomi reads, is about someone too agitated with the Dharma. They cannot focus on their meditation. Such intense desire to understand the Dharma. Perhaps this is probably not our problem yet. We always need more Dharma, but some monks probably so into the Dharma, but they cannot meditate because of it. When we are at that stage, we will worry about this. Number 4. Okay, we have a little bit of time. Let's continue. Text chapter 8, section 2.3, again confirms that both serenity and insight are necessary, and also indicates the skills needed for their respective practice. The cultivation of serenity requires skill in steadying, composing, unifying, and concentrating the mind. The cultivation of insight requires skill in observing, investigating, and discerning conditioned phenomena spoken of as formations, sankhara. In line with the preceding text, this sutta confirms that some meditators begin by developing internal serenity of mind, others by developing the higher wisdom of insight into phenomena, others by developing both in tandem. But while meditators may start off differently, eventually they must all strike a healthy balance between serenity and insight. The exact point of balance between the two will differ from one person to another, but when a meditator achieves the appropriate balance, serenity and insight join forces to issue in the knowledge and vision of the Four Noble Truths. This knowledge and vision, the word transcending wisdom, occurs in four distinct installments, the four stages of realization, which, in sequence, permanently destroy ignorance along with the affiliated defilements. Text chapter 8, section 2.2 subsumes these defilements under the expression the fetters and underlying tendencies. Footnote number 1. These are the stages of stream entry, once returning, non-returning, and arahantship. See chapter 10 for more details. Okay. Sister Kim is not here, but she has the question about this last time. No worries, we will explore it again in chapter 10. So the text starts by saying that this paragraph saying both serenity and insight are necessary. We have to highlight this. And then we have to find the balance between these two methods of meditation, serenity and insight. Okay, Sister Saikin, would you like to continue?
The main impediments to the development of serenity and insight are collectively called the five hindrances, which we already met in the extended account of the gradual training. See text chapter 7, section 4, point number 18. Text chapter 8, section 3 states that just as different impurities of water prevent us from clearly seeing the reflection of our face in a bowl of water, so the five hindrances prevent us from properly understanding our own good and the good of others. A meditator's initial efforts, therefore, have to be devoted to the task of overcoming the hindrances. Once these are overcome, success is assured in the practice of serenity and insight. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sister Saikyang. So again, in this paragraph, we are revisiting the five hindrances. So these are always the main impediments to our meditation, to the development of, specifically, serenity and insight. Therefore, our initial efforts have to be devoted to the task of overcoming the five hindrances. When these are overcome, success is assured in the practice of serenity and insight. Okay, let's read one more, Sister Choi Kwan.
Text chapter 8, section 4 compares the successful stages in the purification of the mind to the refinement of gold. The meditating monk begins by removing the gross impurities of bodily, verbal, and mental conduct. This is achieved by moral discipline and vigilant introspection. Then he eliminates the middle level impurities of unwholesome thoughts, thoughts of sensuality, ill will, and harmfulness. Next come the subtle impurities of meandering thoughts. Finally, he must eliminate thoughts about the Dharma, the subtlest obstacle. When all such distracting thoughts are removed, the monk attains mental unification, ITBW, the basis for the sixth direct knowledge, Abhinaya, culminating in arahantship, the knowledge of the destruction of the taints. Thank you.
Thanks, Sister Chekwan. Okay, we end at this paragraph. Let me highlight this so that I know when to continue, where to continue tomorrow. So this paragraph talks about the successive stage in the purification of mind. Is like how one refines gold, the refinement of gold. Firstly, remove the gross impurities of the bodily, verbal, and mental conduct. How is this achieved? By moral discipline and vigilant introspection. And then the middle level, thoughts of sensuality, ill will, and harmfulness. This we should remove too. And then the next one, the subtle impurities of meandering thoughts, wandering thoughts. And then the subtlest one, we must eliminate thoughts about the Dharma. Okay. And then when all of those are removed, we attain a mental unification, the basis for the sixth direct knowledge, and will culminate in arahantship. Okay, any comments? Any questions? If not, Sister Chekwan, would you like to do the dedication?
回向，愿消三障除烦恼，愿得智慧真明了，不愿追障悉消除，世世常行菩萨道。阿弥陀佛。
Thanks, Sister Chekwan. May we be guided by the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Have a serene Monday ahead. Thanks, everyone, and see you guys next time.